Okay, so let's jump right in. This is a story about how we stop history from just disappearing. And it all starts in one of the most dangerous, most extreme places you can possibly imagine.
You're looking at a Tamil proverb on the screen there. It translates to, if you lose focus, it's death. Now, for the man at the center of our story, a man pushing the absolute limits of human endurance, well, this wasn't just some old saying. It was his reality, every single second.
And that number, 8,848 meters, that's over 29,000 feet. That's the challenge we're talking about, the very top of Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth, a place where the air is so thin, the stakes just couldn't be any higher.
So, this is where we meet Anandan Bala. Picture this. It's May 2019, he's 50 years old, and this Singaporean decides he's going to take on that monumental challenge. I mean, he wasn't just climbing a mountain, right? He was chasing an absolutely massive dream.
And the path he took, it was just relentlessly life-threatening. You've got the Khumbu Icefall, which is basically this giant, shifting river of ice. You have to cross these deep, dark crevasses on these flimsy-looking ladders, and you just know that one wrong step, and that's it. All of this while you're battling bone-chilling cold, this searing physical pain, and your mind is just screaming at you from the fear and the lack of oxygen. So think about it. You're in one of the most remote, most isolating places on the entire planet. Where do you even find the strength to keep going? For Anandan, he found it in his culture. He connected back home listening to Tamil songs on Spotify, talking to his friends in his mother tongue. It was like this lifeline, a piece of home in a totally alien world. Okay, so the final push to the summit, it was just brutal. On May 18th, he goes into the icefall. 5 days later, he makes it to Camp 4, which has this ominous nickname, the Death Zone, and for very good reason. Then, at 9 p.m. on May 22nd, he starts that final, torturous, 13-hour climb, and against all the odds, at 10 in the morning the next day, he did it. He was standing on top of the world.
What an incredible, historic achievement. The oldest Singaporean to ever conquer Everest. It's an amazing story of personal triumph, for sure. But here's the thing, after a moment like this, what happens to the story? How do you make sure a legacy like this is actually preserved for the future?
Because his incredible journey, it's really just the beginning. It's one piece of a much bigger and honestly, a much more important puzzle. His story plugs right into this huge narrative about community, about history, and about making sure we remember.
And here's how. Anandan's story is immortalized right here in this amazing book called Singapore Tamils 200. He's just one of 200 people whose stories and contributions are documented inside.
But this isn't just, a collection of biographies. It's so much more than that. It's a really profound statement about what makes history, and maybe more importantly, who makes history.
The whole thing was a project by the Singapore Tamil Youth Club, and they did it specifically to mark Singapore's bicentennial. That's a 200-year look back at the country's modern history. It was the perfect moment to ask a really important question. Whose stories have we actually been telling all this time? And the people behind the book, they had a very clear mission in mind. They wanted to tell a more complete story, a more inclusive history.
And this right here is what makes this project so important. You know how history books often focus on the same few big names, the famous politicians, the big-shot business leaders? Well, this book decided to do something different. It deliberately set out to correct that imbalance, to shine a light on the stories of the forgotten champions of the working class.
So, who got included? This is the crucial part. They didn't define it by narrow labels like race or language. The only thing that mattered was if you made a significant contribution to the Tamil language and community in Singapore. That meant people from all different Indian communities, even Chinese Singaporeans and others, were included. It's about defining community by what you do, not just by your ancestry.
And get this, they're not even close to being done. This is just volume 1. The plan is to publish 4 more volumes. They're aiming to document 1,000 stories in total. I mean, that is just a massive, multi-generational mission to preserve culture.
So when you step back and look at it, why does a project like this really matter? What's the ultimate goal of documenting 1,000 lives, from a guy who climbs Everest to a local community organizer?
This quote, I think, just captures the mission perfectly. The idea is not to let anyone disappear beyond the margins of historical memory. It's basically a declaration that every single story has value. Every contribution deserves to be remembered.
And that leaves all of us with a really powerful question to think about. This project is saving the stories of the past, but it also forces us to look around and ask, whose stories are we telling right now? Whose contributions are we paying attention to today? Because the history of the next 200 years, well, it's being written by the voices we choose to lift up and the ones we just let fade into silence.